Let me give you a rundown. Xavier Becerra, Attorney General for this great state of California, and a good neighbor to the neighbors to our south in Mexico. I want to make sure I just go through the list real quickly so you know what we're going to do. I will speak. I'm then going to ask one of our California Coastal Commissioners who is here with us, Steve Padilla, to speak, who's also a council member for the city of Chula Vista. I'm going to then ask our assembly member, who I'm glad that she looks like she's been resting because she had a very long week last week and is back home to be able to tell the folks in her assembly district all the work that was accomplished in Sacramento recently. That's Assembly Member Lorena Gonzalez Fletcher. And then I'm going to ask our city council member from the great city of San Diego, David Alvarez, to also join us in remarks. And obviously the three of them can speak directly to the issues that are so important to this part of California and to the United States because they are so close to the border with Mexico. I do want to begin, however, my remarks by recognizing that as close as we are to the border, we're just as close to the folks in Mexico City right now who are trying to rescue the lives of children trapped underneath rubble of a school, praying with the folks in Puerto Rico who are hoping to survive yet another natural attack by another hurricane. It goes on, but I think as we see how the world is shrinking, we realize we've all got to be good neighbors. And that's one of the reasons I think we're here, is because we're all talking about how we could be good neighbors, brothers and sisters to one another. I say this as the Attorney General for a great state, but also as someone who grew up with parents who inculcated in me the importance of following the rules. No one gets to ignore the laws. No one gets to ignore the laws. Not even the President of the United States. In California, we make every effort to follow the rules. And maybe that's one of the reasons why so many businesses come to this great state, why so many jobs are created in this great state, because we follow the rules. We give people a clear path on what it takes to succeed. We give people a chance to understand that if you follow the rules, the folks that aren't, we'll go after them so you can do the right thing for the state of California, create those jobs, move our economy. That's maybe why this one state of 50 in the United States of America is the sixth economic power in the world. Fifth, because some people say we actually overtook Great Britain. Sixth, because I feel confident that we are at least the sixth economic power in the world. We follow the rules. That means that if we follow the rules, we're protecting people, not special interests. We're protecting all the ordinary people who build this great state, not the special interests that would love to say that they can hide behind the skirts of those folks who work so hard every day to make this state better. We want to protect those ordinary Americans, those ordinary Californians who work very hard from any arbitrary decisions, including decisions that are arbitrary by the President of the United States. That's why today I'm filing a lawsuit in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of California on behalf of the 40 million people of the great state of California and on behalf of the California Coastal Commission. The border between the U.S. and Mexico spans some 2,000 miles. The list of laws violated by the President's administration in order to build his campaign wall is almost as long. The Department of Homeland Security would waive 37 federal statutes as well as regulations that are related to those statutes, and he would also violate numerous state and local laws here in our great state of California. In our complaint, we allege that the Trump administration failed to comply with those state and federal environmental laws. We allege that the Trump administration relied on a federal statute that does not authorize the proposed projects presented by the Trump administration. We allege that the Trump administration violated several provisions of the U.S. Constitution, including the separation of powers doctrine and the 10th Amendment. In California, that's not going to fly. We respect immigration policy. We understand it's a federal matter. But if it happens in our backyard, we demand that it be carried out in the right way, following the rule of law. And so my message to anyone in California, the 40 million people who rely on knowing what the rules are so they can have success and build that economy and create more jobs, is this. If you want to do business in the state of California, and that includes the President of the United States, then be prepared to follow the law. Let me now ask the Coastal Commissioner for the California Coastal Commission, Mr. Steve Padilla, to step forward.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney General. Thank you for your leadership in this matter. It's certainly my privilege to serve as a member of the California Coastal Commission, and on behalf of Chair Bochco and the entire Commission, I'm pleased to add our voice to this important conversation this morning. As a local elected official, I not only get an opportunity to serve as part of the important charge that the Coastal Commission has up and down the great state of California, but I also have an understanding as a local elected official who has spent my life advancing the causes of our local communities here in this precious binational region. I have an understanding firsthand and a front row seat for the adverse impacts to our most precious resource, our coastal zone, our environment, our natural resource legacy on the coast that we will either live or disrupt for future generations. The state of California very proudly has some of the most strong and progressive coastal resource protection laws in the nation. That's a proud legacy. The people of the state of California, in their millions, not once, not twice, but 3 times at the ballot box, have reaffirmed the mission of the California Coastal Act to be sure that our coastal resource protections and resources are upheld for future generations, and that we implement the Coastal Zone Management Act and every other federal resource law that applies here on the coast. If you look around you, you will see that you're standing in some of the most precious and unique and sensitive environmental habitat on the coast. And it is a resource that touches our community, it touches our culture, it touches our social fabric, and the impacts of not protecting it and conveniently ignoring regulations have social, economic, and public health impacts. And as our Attorney General said, if you're going to be in California and you're going to talk about the rule of law, well, you damn well better make sure that you protect some of our most precious assets in following that law. At our August hearing, the California Coastal Commission voted to ask the Attorney General to initiate this litigation on behalf of the Commission and the people of the state of California. I'm not ashamed to say, Mr. Attorney General, we're lucky that we have an AG in California that will take up that mission of defending our laws and protecting coastal resources for future generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Let me now ask Assemblymember Lorena Gonzalez Fletcher to step forward.
Thank you, Attorney General, and thank you all for coming. I'm proud to represent the border region in the State Assembly, and I think I, like so many of my constituents, have spent the last few days thinking a lot about our proximity to Mexico. I, like so many people I represent, spent yesterday and today confirming that my relatives in Mexico City were okay. We have a natural tie and a community that is so rich with relationships with Mexico. The idea of the wall is something that was personal for us. Yes, there are already some structures along the way, but this idea came about to create a bigger barrier, to separate us more from our families, from our friends, from our trading partners, from people just steps from us, in order to prove a point that seems to any of us that live in this border region a little silly. Obviously, if we care about immigration enforcement, we know that we have a much bigger problem with tunnels than we do people walking across tough terrain to get to the United States. Sensitive lands that otherwise we would never allow building upon if you take the border all the way out to Arizona, places that have been protected by NEPA and CEQA for years and are now subject to just a president who has decided he is going to build a structure unnecessary there. We're here today proud of our Attorney General because we in California are protecting taxpayers. An ungodly amount of money would have to be used to be spent on a wall that would be destructive to our environment, destructive to our relationship with Mexico, and actually provide no additional resources or no additional feelings that somehow our borders are safer. I perhaps, to people who live maybe in Iowa, it sounds like a really good idea. But those of us who interact with the other side of the border, live here, breathe the same air, travel back and forth, know that we don't need more structure. What we need is a good relationship. So we're proud, and the legislature has made numerous statements throughout this year about our opposition to this wall, about our support for California's environmental laws, and we're proud to have an Attorney General who's willing to stand up for the Coastal Commission, for taxpayers in California, and for all of our residents to say this is unnecessary, it is illegal, and we're going to fight it in court. So thank you, Mr. Attorney General.
Let me ask one of the dynamic leaders in the city of San Diego, Council Member David Alvarez, to step forward.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. Just yesterday, the city of San Diego approved a resolution in opposition of this wall. Mr. Attorney General, San Diego is with you. We are the largest border city in the entire border, U.S.-Mexico border. And we have a very unique perspective of what it means to be a border town. And we understand what this wall will and will not accomplish. I can tell you, standing where we are, the beautiful natural resources of just our beach alone are going to be impacted. It already has been. We see flooding, we see pollution, we see beach closures as a result of the existing walls. Any future walls will absolutely have a negative impact on our environment and the quality of life of San Diegans. That is why it is important that we respect the rule of law, as this president claims that he always wants to do, and why I'm proud to stand here with the Attorney General in support of this lawsuit that is being brought forward. As a San Diegan, as a lifelong San Diegan who spends the time crossing the border on a very regular basis, I can tell you there is need for investments in our border relationship, but it certainly isn't in a wall. Investments are needed to make sure that we have an efficient and safe border, and that can happen if this president actually focuses on the issues that really matter, and instead of focusing on trying to appease a constituency and to appease those who voted for him just because of a campaign pledge to build a wall, which will do nothing to enhance border safety, nothing to enhance our relationship in our international standing with Mexico, nothing to enhance the lives of Americans, the Americans that live here on this side of the border, those of us that are here today. And again, I'm proud to stand here. San Diego, we will be in support of this. Thank you very much.
As I mentioned before, we have our legal team who is here who can answer pretty much any questions about the lawsuit. If you want to get into particulars, they will be here after we close this press conference. I do recognizing that we are steps from the border and that we have lots of representation here in the media from Spanish language media. We'll say some very quick remarks, but we can always be available as well. And no coincidence that every one of the speakers here has heritage. Mr. President, I hope you're listening, has heritage that originates in Latin America, if not Mexico directly. De niño aprendí yo. Hay una obligación de respetar la ley, de respetar lo que dicen los padres, los maestros. Estar aquí es solo seguir lo que aprendí de mis padres, respetar la ley. Y si uno quiere tener negocio aquí en California, si uno quiere vivir aquí, si uno quiere tratar comercio aquí en California o gobernar aquí en California, tiene que entender que tiene que respetar la ley. Esta demanda solo dice eso. No importa quién eres, Si quieres tener negocio aquí, como gobierno, como empresa aquí en California, tienes que respetar la ley. Y por eso, unidos como californianos, estamos aquí mandando un mensaje bien claro por medio de esta demanda. Hay que respetar la ley. We'll take any questions you might have.